The Houston Rockets are trading for Kevin Durant. The deal sends Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and 5 second-round picks to the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant apparently learned this information in the middle of being on stage, and he did not seem that surprised, just all smiles. This will be Kevin Durant's 5th team, and when the Suns traded for him all the way back at the deadline in 2023, I remember where I was because I was with, all of my friends, and we were all shocked. They interrupted our watch session of Walk Hard. Totally rude. This time, it took nobody by surprise. These rumors have been bubbling since this year's deadline, and the past few weeks have had nearly daily Kevin Durant rumors. So instead of pretending this is an earth-shattering piece of news, I just want to answer a few questions. Was this the best deal that Phoenix could get? Is this the best destination for Kevin Durant? And what does this mean for the rest of an already insane offseason? Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. Okay, seriously. 2 trades during the finals, this one coming just mere hours before Game 7. Seriously, what the fuck? Why can nobody wait? Rudy was telling me about how, there could be some trades during the finals this year, and I was like, probably not. Seems like most teams know or just don't really go for that. But as we know, this offseason, as I've talked about, this offseason has a lot of potential changes on the horizon. So it doesn't necessarily shock me that teams literally can't even wait to get this offseason started. But I think, if anything, this and the Desmond Bane trade, which I unfortunately have yet to react to, is a sign that we're going to get an even more bombastic series of moves after the finals are over. I would appreciate if they waited, but whatever. Let's go ahead and get into this first. Let's just talk about Kevin Durant's fit in Houston. I was not a fan of the idea of any young team trading for Kevin Durant, so I can't say that I'm particularly a big fan of this move for the Houston Rockets. However, they managed to do it while only giving up one actual good rotational piece. I think Jalen Green is straight up terrible. There's a chance that this change of environment in Phoenix could work to his favor, but I'm willing to bet that it's not going to, especially if they're going to keep Devin Booker there, which seems to be what they're trying to do, which would be extra stupid to me with the context of having Jalen Green there. But I already did a video over on Little Rusty Buckets if you want to hear the extent of my thoughts on why keeping Devin Booker would be stupid for Houston, or for Phoenix rather. But even though I don't like the idea of a team this young trading so much for an older guy, it actually wasn't so much, as it turns out. The number 10 pick, that's nice. You could have got a real player out of that, but this isn't a draft that's overwhelmingly deep or overwhelmingly great. You have Cooper Flagg at the top of the draft, and then basically everybody after that. There's a couple of dudes who are speculated to have star potential, but basically nobody, as far as I have heard, that's a lock to be that caliber of player, especially nobody by the number 10 pick. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable pick to give up, and the fact that you didn't give up any draft picks after that is huge because, I believe Houston doesn't have all of their future first, so that already made it difficult to trade future first-round picks. But on top of that, the fact that they didn't trade future first-round picks is going to prevent further confusion in that area. They're not going to have to worry about Steffian rule bullshit, because once this pick is selected in less than a week now, I think, when the draft is coming around the corner, then they're right back to not having any kind of restrictions on draft capital. So that's good. Dillon Brooks, I thought was great for his price point in Houston. I said that he didn't belong in the NBA after his horrible, horrible end to his tenure in Memphis, but he proved that he very much does. While I knew he was a great defensive talent, his offense was dog shit. However, his offense has gotten significantly better in Houston. So Phoenix is getting a pretty solid player in that case. That's really the only rotational piece that I think matters that was traded here. And then one draft pick that matters, and then a bunch of second rounders. I think that's pretty great. The big thing for me was the timeline as well as the contract. However, you saved yourself from Jalen Green's contract by making this deal, which to me makes this a win in the salary department, because I think Kevin Durant's contract is a year or two shorter than Jalen Green, and I would much rather pay $50 million a year for Kevin Durant than $30 million a year for Jalen Green. So that is a huge W in that category. The fact that they didn't have to give up any young player that I think mattered. And I do really need to emphasize that aspect here because Jalen Green, I was fully out on after this playoff series. I have not seen him improve at anything substantially at the NBA level, maybe defense, but even still, he never got to the point of being an outright great defender or anything like that. So I don't think they should feel that bad losing him. They still have Sengun. They still have basically all the other core pieces that you'd want to keep around. Didn't have to move Amen Thompson or anything like that. Didn't have to move even Tari Eason. Or Jabari Smith Jr. Not even any of those two. Like that. This is a good trade for Houston because on a pure on-the-court fit perspective, just for the next couple of seasons, next 2 or 3 seasons, Kevin Durant fits perfectly for what Houston needs because what I have been saying for Kevin Durant and whatever team trades for him, non-binary Kevin Durant, you can't have him be your best defender or your best playmaker. And in Phoenix, he was basically tied for being the best playmaker with Devin Booker, and he was their best defender. In Houston, he probably won't even be a top 3 defender on that team. And that's credit to Houston, not a discount to Kevin Durant. You say Durant's expiring? Did you add that? Yeah, Durant's deal after this year is expiring. So they literally just freed themselves from like 3 or 4 years of paying Jalen Green 30, just 2? Yeah, that's right. It was a shorter deal. Yeah, okay. Rudy's right. It was a shorter deal. This is on the fly in case you haven't picked up on that. They saved themselves from Jalen Green's contract. Kevin Durant's deal is expiring, so they really didn't hinder themselves in the long term, which was just my biggest fear with them potentially trading for him was that they're going to hurt their long-term projection of this core, and I felt like it was a little short-sighted, but if you're not giving up much to do it, it's not short-sighted. In fact, it's actually better for your long-term while working in your short term. So actually, the more as I'm talking myself through this trade, this was a great deal for Houston because didn't have to give up much, got off of a bad contract, and Durant's expiring. So if he ends up just being washed next year, there's not like some super dire long-term consequence. Now, as for whether this deal flips them over into the contender category, well, I already felt like the Houston Rockets were fringe contenders. And I certainly feel like, given that Jalen Green should have been off of this roster and out of the rotation anyways, replacing Jalen Green with Kevin Durant, that swap, yeah, I would say that jumps them into the contender category. Now, are they going to be better than OKC? Probably not. If the Spurs trade for some star player, whoever that may be, they probably wouldn't be better than them either. But I don't know. There's plenty of opportunity. The West is it's the Wild West, if you will. So yes, I absolutely believe that they can contend in the West and they could potentially make a championship run. They certainly wouldn't be my first pick. However, they can still make moves. They're far from done, I assume. I assume there's going to be a few more things, at least on the margins, to improve this roster. Now, what were some other destinations other than Phoenix that kind of lost out in this deal? Well, to be honest, there weren't a lot of teams that I felt should have traded for Kevin Durant. The only one that I would have said that is currently off of the table, but might be after Game 7, is that if OKC lost in the finals, they should do it. But obviously they can't do that now, so that's off of the table. Contract-wise, that was also difficult, so that's not a huge loss. I'm actually very glad that the San Antonio Spurs did not end up committing to this deal, not only because of the long-term implications that I was worried about with Houston, but also I just don't want Kevin Durant taking shots away from Victor Wembanyama. I'm good on that. I would much rather just have that development for another year for Victor rather than adding Kevin there, though I understand the appeal of that trio. Who were a couple of other teams rumored for them? Yeah, Memphis would have been a cool one. I actually liked the fit there a lot. I thought there was a decent chance that Desmond Bane trade for that draft capital was like a precursor to a Kevin Durant trade, but clearly not the case. It could be a precursor for a different move. Maybe they're going in on Giannis. Who knows? But Rudy has told me apparently they want to go after Devin Booker. That would be interesting, but it seems like Phoenix wants to hold on to them. But yeah, I don't think there's any other team that's like really kicking themselves for not getting in on this deal. Trading for Kevin Durant was going to be a dubious thing to begin with, and I'm also sure that Phoenix talked to every other team in the league, and if this was the best offer they got, then clearly there was not going to be, if a team was desperate to get Kevin Durant, they could have offered more than they did. So I don't think anyone's really kicking themselves too hard. Now, how bad was this for Phoenix and what's next for them? Well, honestly, I can't say it's that bad for them because I didn't think that there was going to be a whole lot available for Kevin Durant in terms of major assets. I don't think Jalen Green's good. However, for a team that's about to be terrible, if you trade Devin Booker, I think Jalen Green's great because he's the perfect tank commander. Reminds me very much of Zach LaVine in Chicago, although I think he's worse than Zach LaVine, which is saying a lot because I don't even think very highly of Zach LaVine. I think they just need to trade Devin. I think not doing that would be silly. I think having Jalen Green be essentially the centerpiece of this trade should be an indicator that they are going into a full rebuild direction. But I don't know. That's the big thing. That's what I'm waiting on. That's the final shoe to drop is, are the Phoenix Suns actually doing this? Yeah, we're holding on to Devin Booker thing. I think it would be silly for a variety of reasons, primarily just because it doesn't allow you to get out of the current situation you're in. But also, I don't know, you'd have to get your own first-round picks in that deal, though. Oh, you're right. That trade did include the Phoenix pick. Okay, yeah. Memphis, Devin Booker. Maybe that's what happens. I'm going to be pissed, though, because I want him in Detroit, but whatever. So, Devin Booker to Memphis is probably the next thing to watch out for, possibly. I didn't expect a good return, so I'm not really shocked. You know, number 10 pick, probably use that on a high-risk, high-reward guy. I wouldn't be drafting for a floor-type player at the moment. I would be very much drafting for a ceiling-type player, and you're going to want to land on that, too, because not a lot of draft capital going forward for this rebuild or retool or whatever you're calling it, but it's hard for me to tell you what exactly this looks like for the Suns, how bad their future looks going forward, because I'll tell you this, if Devin Booker stays, it's bad. If he doesn't, I keep making NBA players non-binary for some reason today, then they're going to be terrible. But I think they're going to be terrible and bad for a couple of years anyways. But one of them is terrible and bad with some upward trajectory, and the other one is terrible and bad without that upward trajectory. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it right now. There will be more information to come out, but that is it. Goodbye.